A small-town farm boy walked into a John Deere dealership dreaming of success, but the owner laughed and told him he was too young to survive farming. 20 years later, after relentless struggle and sacrifice, he returned not as a customer, but as the man buying the entire dealership. At 16 years old, Mason Turner spent every afternoon driving an old tractor across his grandfather's small farm in Iowa. While other teenagers played football or dreamed about city life, Mason dreamed about fields, harvests, and building a future through farming. His hands carried dirt beneath the nails, and his heart carried determination far beyond his young age already. Mason's grandfather, Walter Turner, taught him everything about hard work, honesty, and respect for the land. Though their farm struggled financially, Walter believed farming was more than business. It was legacy. Every sunrise represented another chance to fight forward. Mason listened carefully to every lesson, while silently promising himself he would someday transform the family's difficult situation into lasting success forever. One summer afternoon, Walter's old tractor finally broke beyond repair during harvest season. Without proper equipment, losing crops became almost certain. Determined to help, Mason convinced his grandfather to visit the nearest John Deere dealership 2 towns away. Though nervous, Mason carried detailed plans about financing newer equipment and expanding operations gradually through disciplined hard work over the coming years ahead. The dealership looked enormous compared to their small family farm. Bright green tractors lined the polished showroom floor beneath giant lights. Mason walked inside wearing dusty boots, faded jeans, and a worn flannel shirt beside his grandfather. Several salesmen glanced briefly before returning attention toward wealthy commercial farmers negotiating expensive machinery deals nearby, without acknowledging the struggling pair standing quietly there, together patiently. Eventually, dealership owner Richard Coleman approached with an impatient expression. Known throughout Iowa as a tough businessman, Coleman valued money more than relationships. Mason respectfully explained their situation and asked about financing options for a used tractor. But before Mason could finish speaking, Coleman laughed dismissively. His words cut deeply. "You're too young to farm seriously, kid. Farming destroys dreamers like you." The showroom fell silent around them. Mason felt humiliation burn across his face, while nearby customers listened awkwardly. Walter quietly lowered his head, embarrassed yet powerless. Coleman continued speaking arrogantly, claiming small farms would disappear soon because only giant corporations could survive modern agriculture. To him, Mason represented another naive country boy destined to fail before adulthood ever truly began completely in life. Driving home that evening, Mason remained unusually quiet beside his grandfather. Yet behind the silence, something powerful awakened inside him. Instead of breaking his spirit, Coleman's insult became fuel. Mason promised himself one thing while staring across endless Iowa cornfields. Someday he would return successful enough to prove every word spoken against him completely wrong through undeniable achievement and relentless perseverance over time. The following years tested Mason harder than anyone imagined. After Walter passed away unexpectedly during Mason's senior year, financial pressure nearly destroyed the family farm entirely. Banks refused loans repeatedly, crops failed during severe drought seasons, and neighboring farms sold land to massive agricultural corporations. Yet Mason refused surrender. He worked nights repairing machinery while managing fields alone during exhausting days without complaint or rest. By 24, Mason had transformed his grandfather's tiny operation into a respected regional farming business. Instead of expanding recklessly, he studied modern agricultural technology carefully and invested wisely. He learned precision farming, irrigation management, and sustainable crop rotation techniques. While larger companies focus purely on profit, Mason built trust with local communities by helping struggling farmers survive difficult economic seasons together through cooperation instead competition. Over time, Mason Turner Farms became one of Iowa's fastest-growing independent agricultural businesses. His success attracted attention nationwide because he combined traditional farming values with innovative technology brilliantly. Young farmers admired him deeply, seeing proof that determination still mattered in modern America. Yet despite growing wealth and recognition, Mason never forgot the humiliation he experienced inside Richard Coleman's dealership many years earlier painfully. Meanwhile, Richard Coleman's dealership slowly declined. His arrogant leadership alienated loyal customers, while corporate competition increased aggressively across the region. Farmers preferred businesses treating them respectfully rather than dismissively. Economic downturns worsened financial problems further, forcing Coleman into heavy debt. Eventually, rumors spread throughout Iowa that the once powerful dealership faced bankruptcy and possible permanent closure after decades serving local agricultural communities unsuccessfully recently. One autumn morning, Mason received unexpected news from his financial advisor. The John Deere dealership where Coleman once humiliated him officially entered private sale negotiations. Investors planned purchasing the property and converting it into commercial storage warehouses. Hearing this stirred complicated emotions inside Mason. Part of him remembered painful embarrassment, while another part recognized the dealership still represented history important to countless hard-working farmers nearby. After days of reflection, Mason made a surprising decision. Instead of allowing outside investors to erase the dealership completely, he arranged a private meeting with bank officials managing the sale. Mason arrived wearing a tailored navy blue suit, polished boots, and quiet confidence earned through years of sacrifice. Nobody inside recognized the once humiliated teenager who walked nervously through those same doors 2 decades earlier before now. During negotiations, executives discussed numbers, contracts, and future restructuring plans professionally. Then, Richard Coleman entered unexpectedly, older and visibly exhausted by financial failure. At first, he barely recognized Mason. But once realization struck, silence filled the conference room instantly. Coleman stared speechlessly at the successful businessman seated confidently before him, the same young farm boy he publicly mocked years earlier without mercy or understanding whatsoever. Coleman attempted awkward apologies, explaining business pressures and changing times. Mason listened calmly, without anger visible across his face. Success had matured him beyond revenge. He explained that farming was never only about profit margins or expensive machinery. Real agriculture depended upon resilience, community, humility, and belief in people willing to work honestly despite impossible odds. Those values built lasting success where arrogance ultimately failed completely always. By the end of the meeting, Mason officially purchased the dealership, but instead of firing long-time employees or celebrating Coleman's downfall publicly, Mason announced something unexpected. He would transform the dealership into a farmer support center focused on helping young agricultural families succeed affordably. Financing programs, mentorship opportunities, repair workshops, and educational resources would become available for struggling farmers often ignored by corporate businesses nowadays completely. Local newspapers quickly spread the remarkable story across America. Headlines celebrated the farmer once told he was too young, returning decades later as owner of the same dealership. Young people everywhere found inspiration in Mason's journey because his victory represented more than money. It proved rejection could become motivation, hardship could create strength, and respect mattered more than status or temporary power ever could. Months later, Mason placed a framed photograph near the dealership entrance, showing himself and his grandfather beside their old broken tractor years earlier. Underneath appeared a simple message for every visitor entering the building. Never underestimate someone willing to work for their dreams. Customers paused, reading those words daily, reminded that greatness often begins with ordinary people refusing to quit despite humiliation and doubt. Standing outside the dealership one quiet evening, Mason watched young farmers exploring tractors with excitement, just as he once had long ago. Sunset covered Iowa fields in golden light, while memories returned softly. He realized success felt meaningful, not because he bought the dealership, but because he transformed pain into purpose and created opportunities for others still chasing impossible dreams across America every day faithfully.